today. I have a very special guest, someone who is an incredible trailblazer.
When Minnesota Sports and Events started in 2019, I had been working on it and working on putting a sports commission together. As long as I can do this and simultaneously get healthy, that's what I'm going to do.
Was there ever a moment when you realized that, wow, I really can do really massively big things?
We declared bankruptcy, but we continued to operate. And I thought, well, this is, if we can make it through this, we're going to be okay. And then we had a massive scandal with our owner. When you have a group of people that believe in what they do, you can work miracles. I am a big believer in more will be revealed. I feel like every single situation in anyone's life, this can be true. Even if it seems like the worst possible situation, there is a silver lining.
Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome to yet another episode of Rise to More. Oh my gosh, and rise to more we shall today. I have a very special guest, someone that my husband has admired for a very long time, someone who is an incredible trailblazer and has done things that very few would even know how to construct. So Wendy Blackshaw is my guest today. She's the president and CEO of Minnesota Sports and Events, and one of the key architects behind some of the biggest events that our state has hosted, like 2018 Super Bowl and NCAA Women's Final Four. My husband's crazy about that stuff, so he would know all things that Wendy does. Over the past 2 decades, she has helped build and brand some of the most iconic brands like Mall of America, Sun Country Airlines, and the Minnesota North Stars, while raising tens of millions of dollars for the events that bring world-class gatherings to our state. But it's the way she does it, through relationships, through vision, and through incredible heart. Wendy, welcome to Rise to More.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so thrilled. Well, Wendy, you are like literally, when I say a trooper, you just had a surgery on your foot and you came to a podcast episode. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just had it yesterday, and as long as I don't have to walk anywhere in this interview, we'll be good.
We're going to stay put for most part.
Right.
But there is, I have to say, if you said, "Hey, sorry, I can't," the entire team would have, we would be completely fine with that. But this determination to I'm coming no matter what, it was a commitment that I made. That also tells us a little bit about who you are, doesn't it?
Well, I appreciate that, and I will tell you that when Minnesota Sports and Events started in 2019, I was also diagnosed with breast cancer, and I'm fine. I'm great, but I had been working on it and working on putting a sports commission together, and I was diagnosed, and so from October 2019, when I had a double mastectomy, through the next couple years, I had quite a few surgeries and treatments and a lot of things going on. And we stood up Minnesota Sports and Events at the same time. And I don't tell you that because, I'm so great, but it was because I do believe in, once you make a commitment, and I'm fortunate enough that I am perfectly healthy. I'm fine.
Thank God.
And it was important I love Minnesota and I love our state, and especially now these kinds of things are so important that, I made a commitment, and as long as I can do this and simultaneously get healthy, that's what I'm going to do. And it turned out wonderfully. So that's just kind of how it's in my DNA.
Well, I'm really glad that you're well,
Thank
but
you.
and you're radiating even as you tell that story. Do you think that when you say it's in my DNA, that's actually a really great follow-up question? Is that level of I'm going to show up? There's a little bit of that Minnesota grit
Yeah.
Do you think that some people can maybe work on that, or is it truly we're just either born with it or we're not?
Oh,
Because
I think people can definitely work on that. I think we learn a lot from leaders, from mentors, and I've learned a lot from people who have come before me. People who have, I worked for Maureen Bausch, who was at Mall of America for many years, and she was the CEO of the Super Bowl. And Maureen was one of those people that she would come up with an idea, and we would all look at each other like, did she just say that? Like, there is no way that's going to happen. And she would make it happen. And I learned that from her. So, yes, it's in my DNA, but it's also from seeing, especially women who come up with these pie in the sky ideas and they work out. And that's what's happened.
well, we're going to talk about the trajectory of your career, and I have heard so many things about you. Like your reputation truly precedes you, but. Going back to Mall of America, Sun Country Airlines, like you have branded and one would say built these iconic brands in such a phenomenal way. You worked on some of the biggest events that one can possibly imagine, which means that the shareholders, politicians, CEOs, the community, everyone trusts you. And was there ever a moment when you realized that, wow, I really can do really, really massively big things?
It's a great question. I will tell you that when I was at Sun Country, it was back in 2008, 2009, and the country was going through an oil crisis. And Sun Country went bankrupt. And we declared bankruptcy, but we continued to operate. And I thought, well, this is, if we can make it through this, we're going to be okay. And then we had a massive scandal with our owner who ended up going to prison. And I worked at Sun Country through that entire time. And I mean, there were days where I thought, what are we doing? But we made it. And Sun Country still exists today. We made it through the just challenges that I couldn't even fathom. And that was such a huge lesson for me in that, and it was not because of anything I did. It was because we had 1,000 employees who believed so much in that company and that organization that everyone banded together. They agreed to not take salaries for a time. When you have a group of people that believe in what they do, you can work miracles.
It's incredible. There's something about Minnesotans that we're just. I don't know if we're stubborn or dedicated or committed, but we persevere despite, especially in moments like in the last few years, it's been tough, but we persevere. What have you learned about yourself and also very difficult times in general? And I'm asking this question with kind of a background noise of look at the world, look at the challenges that the companies are experiencing, that our country is experiencing, that we are personally. People are looking to you right now for that advice because everywhere we look is obstacles, problems, and challenges.
No, it's so true. I mean, January, which January felt like a month that was like a year long, and we saw some of the most difficult things happen. And two things can be true at the same time. The most difficult things that were heartbreaking, but also I have never felt such a sense of pride to be a Minnesotan and how this state showed up and how in 45-degree below weather, we had people who were saying, no, it's not going to happen here. I mean, I have never been so proud. And it's that kind of harnessing that kind of commitment and love and sense of place that I do think we're unique. And I do think that many of us have that within us and watched that and participated in that. And we can work miracles if we all believe in it.
We can do hard things.
We can do hard
so
things.
if you don't give up and you have Florian, we were just talking about Florian, the general manager of Four Seasons, he talks about always you have to have a positive attitude. And if you have a positive attitude, you can figure things out
Right.
no matter what.
Right.
And you certainly have the talk about positive attitude. I have heard you say that you didn't follow the traditional corporate career. You said you built your own career.
Right.
So there's women right now who have done all the right things, but they feel somehow stuck.
Right.
How have you been a little bit more intentional or strategic? I know you've taken jobs, and those have been intentional. And you said, when I've taken a job, another opportunity will pop up. But what about the strategy behind the your vision for where you wanted to go and what kind of life you wanted to lead?
It's a great question. And I wish I could tell you that there was this really thought out strategy, but I am a big believer in more will be revealed. That is something that I live by. And I've always known whatever situation that I've been in, even if I wasn't necessarily feeling fulfilled or happy with what I was doing, I have always believed more will be revealed. And that's been the truth for my entire career. I always have been led to the next thing and the next right thing. And that has enabled me to do some amazing things. I think it's more of the willingness to be open-minded and to embrace what might look scary or might look impossible, and the willingness to see sort of, you talked about, positivity. What could the reality of this be? When we started Minnesota Sports and Events, we were the only city, state of our size that did not have a sports commission. And so, like Super Bowl, we stood up a local organizing committee, and then after Super Bowl, it went away. Every other city and state has a sports commission that is permanent, that does that. And so at that point in time, we decided we should really have a sports commission here. We had no money. We had no funding. It was a woman who still works for me, Debbie Estes, and I, it was our computers, our laptops, and us. And we thought, we should try to figure out how this might work. And literally against all odds, we have somehow managed to pull off some of the biggest events and greatest events with economic impact, bringing free fan festivals as part of all our events, because we really believed that somehow, some way we could. There wasn't necessarily a laid out strategy because we didn't know how we were going to get there. I mean, we were literally building the plane as we flew it.
But there was an inkling about being of service. There was an inkling about clearly a need for the state.
Yes.
And also we can make this state great. We can also collaborate. We should, just like any major city. So you are looking, what I'm hearing you say is that you're looking for breadcrumbs as you're following this, all will be revealed.
Right. And there's an end game. There is a here's where we are, here's where we want to be. We're not exactly sure how we are going to get there, but I know we can get there, and we might take a wrong turn, but then we'll pivot and we'll just take another turn. And it's surrounding yourselves with really amazing, bright, smart, innovative, creative people who also have the same vision, who also kind of don't mind taking a risk.
You know what's so beautiful about people like you? Every time I have a great sitting in that chair, they never fail to mention it's about the team. It's about the people that you work with. It's about there's I think the characteristics of the people who lead with such heart that they really, really partner well with others.
My team is incredible, and none of what has happened would have happened without the people who are sitting at Minnesota Sports and Events. They are so committed. And we do have the same vision of let's make this place that we love so much even better by bringing in these large scale events, we're starting a 501c3, a foundation in the next year. And, how can we give back to kids who don't have access to gymnastics, who don't have access to basketball? How can we do clinics? How can we teach every kid in Minnesota how to play hockey? So yes, we have this platform of large-scale events, but how can we use that platform to give back to people who maybe don't have access to the things that some of us do? And everyone on the team believes in that 100%.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And it continues to give. What are you personally inspired with? When you said the words "all will be revealed," something stirred up inside of me. I'm a really big believer in oneness, connectedness, being connected, and trusting that I'm divinely guided. What is your North Compass? What leads you or anchors you as you live your life?
Great question. And I'm very transparent about this. So I have been in recovery since I have been in my 20s. And I was fortunate enough to, my alcoholism runs in my family, and I knew pretty early on that I was one of those people who had an allergy, and my father died of alcoholism. And I, again, really early on, realized that in order to have the kind of life I want, I need to do something about this. And so I just by chance met a woman when I was 26 who was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and she brought me to my first meeting, and I've been in a 12-step program ever since. That is my North Star. Without the women who are in my meetings, without sponsoring women, without recovery, I would not have the life I have today, and I am so incredibly grateful for that. And I talk about that really openly because you never know when there might be someone who is struggling and who might need to hear that you can have an amazing life. You just need to make some choices to get help in whatever way that looks like. I never went to treatment. I never did any of those things, but I did find a 12-step program, and that's what I live my life by.
I've heard the most amazing things about that program and about its teachings. One of my favorite spiritual teachers, Dr. David Hawkins, he talks about that it calibrates, meaning energetically, it calibrates at such a high level that it's incredibly healing for people, and just to be in that presence.
Yeah, it's miraculous. I mean, I have seen, and it's been a very long time that I've been in the program, but what I get to experience is seeing someone walk into the rooms and they're at the bottom. There's a saying that you don't come in as a winner. You know, people come in because they are hurting and they're in pain and they don't know what to do. And seeing them 3 months later, 6 months later, 5 years later, it is truly, truly miraculous. I can't even begin to tell you how many people I have seen recover that have gone on to live these incredible lives. And frankly, people in recovery oftentimes have a lot of energy, a lot of intensity, and when put towards really positive, initiatives in their lives, they do incredible, great things.
Amazing things. I remember reading Dr. Wayne Dyer, who wrote so many incredible books. He was an alcoholic, and he talks about the moment he gave up drinking, he went on to produce this just incredible books, and I think be of so much service to humanity in terms of spirituality and healing. Thank you for sharing that. That's actually really powerful. There's so much to people like yourself. There's this depth to you. Like, remember I told you, like, I don't know you, but I already love you.
Right.
But there's very often when we have this, when we meet someone like that, you will know that there are stories there. Very often that there's experiences deep, and with that comes deep wisdom. And you seem to have it all and put it all together now in the work that you're doing.
It feels like the culmination of a lot of things that I've learned, and also just I live in gratitude, and that's not always easy. I'm not perfect. My husband will tell you that, but I do try to live in gratitude. I feel like every single situation in anyone's life, this can be true. Even if it seems like the worst possible situation, there's a silver lining. For breast cancer, my silver lining was realizing that nothing is important except your health and your family and the rest of it. And that gives you such a freedom to do things that you might have been too afraid to do prior. The silver lining in being an addict or an alcoholic is that you then get to recover and build an amazing, incredible life and help people. And that's the most important thing. And it's one of kind of the bottom lines of being in a 12-step program is it's about giving it away. And I believe in that.
Oh, that is, you're just blowing me away. I love this conversation. Where it's going is, someone who is listening today and who is really struggling. So we have a lot of executives who are listening to this, and they may be struggling with whatever it is,
right?
And they feel like there's no way out. What would you tell them today? Just today, the first thing that they could do to
reach out.
Reach
out. Reach out to me. Reach out to someone that you know. Take that risk. I think when we're highly successful people, it becomes difficult to let go of ego and to admit that I need help. And but people want to help. Reach out to someone because there's so much help. And there's so many people who are highly successful executives who have been through really difficult times and who would be more than happy, myself included, to help anyone.
Oh my gosh. Wendy, I love you. I love you. I love you. This is beautiful. I read extensively about the marketing campaign that you've done for Sun Country Airlines.
Right.
It was so smart, so clever, so beautiful. But it was during some of the most turbulent times for the company. Not just that, you've done others, and you walked into rooms where, you have to convince people to do some really big things. When you go into situations like that, what do you see that no one else does?
That's a great question. With Sun Country, it was being kind of at that place of, we are in bankruptcy, we don't have money for a marketing campaign, and it was thinking about what makes us different. And it was during the time that Northwest Airlines merged with Delta, and Delta was moving their hub to Atlanta. And what I saw was there's no longer Northwest Airlines here in Minnesota. Sun Country's now the hometown airline. And it was like the right time. And we just thought, well, we are the hometown airline now. And again, because we didn't have any money, we did some really fun out-of-the-box marketing initiatives around that. And it ended up being the most incredible campaign and almost a grassroots kind of word-of-mouth campaign. So I think it's sometimes looking at what is the opportunity and not maybe the traditional opportunity. Same with Minnesota Sports and Events. It's like the opportunity is other states have a ton of funding to bring these events here. Mm-hmm. We do not, and we are working on that, and I'll talk about that. But, these events are extremely important. So how can we go out to the corporate community and convince them that these events are important, especially coming out of the pandemic, especially coming out of George Floyd? Our downtowns needed to be resurrected. What is the opportunity here that we can bring these events here? Even though a lot of people said, well, you can't do that. They're too expensive. It costs $50 million to bring the Super Bowl here. That's never going to work. But I think...
And you did it.
Well, we did it. And that wasn't even the hardest one. It was after the pandemic when it was really difficult.
Yes.
But it was really getting people to believe in that our community needed help and help us to fund these events, because it brings hundreds of thousands of people. I talked about the community initiatives. There's so much good that comes out of it. So it's looking at it in a little bit of a different way. Other states have public funding. We don't. We could have easily said, well, we don't have public funding, and so we're just going to, take our choice and go home. But we didn't. We figured out a way to do it.
Yeah, and you're now talking to legislators to actually to change that, because I suspect that it was not easy to raise millions of dollars private funds to bring that. You did it successfully. That's why you are Wendy Blackshaw that we're talking about. But that must have been really hard. So why not create a process that can be repeatable? It's not as hard, and that's what you're working on right now.
Exactly. So we have gotten initiative or appropriations for gymnastics. So we did go to the state and ask for an appropriation for the Gymnastics Trials. So that was the year that Simone Biles and Suni Lee were here. We did an amazing event in downtown Minneapolis, and the state did give us an appropriation for that. The difference with other states is that they have yearly appropriations or yearly funds that go into these events. What we've had to do is go to the legislature every year and ask for funding for one-off events. And the problem with that is it depends on the state's budget. So in a year that the state has a surplus, they might be able to carve off some money for these events. But in a year where we have a deficit, then what happens to these events? And oftentimes those years are the years when we need it the most. So we just lost gymnastics for 2028. USA Gymnastics, the governing body, they loved the event we put on. They have talked about that ever since it was the sort of, gold standard. And we could not get the 2028 trials because we do not have the funding. And so we are losing these events because we don't have this long-term sustainable funding. In the sports betting bill, there is a line item for Minnesota sports and events, so a percentage of tax revenue would go to fund our events. That would be a game changer for us. It would be an absolute game changer because we wouldn't have to either go for corporate dollars or go to the state. And again, in a year of a deficit, we won't get funding. So how do we not lose these events? We get that long-term sustainable funding, and sports betting is a way that we could make that happen. But it just has to pass.
It has to pass. Well, I bet all the taxpayers would vote for that. You're changing an infrastructure of an entire community by doing that. I suspect you're so you're so warm and so spirited. I just love your energy.
Thank you.
And you have to walk into rooms with billionaires, millionaires, governors, mayors, and you have to convince them either to give you money or to agree with you on changing the law or whatever it is. And you seem to be very convincing. What is the secret for those of us who would like to create some kind of impact in our own boardrooms, whether it's with our husbands or wives, or whether it's with our bosses or on a greater level?
Yeah, well, my husband's the toughest one. Let me be clear right there. I am just myself. I mean, I have to say, I wish I could tell you that of course I know my material, I know my talking points, but I think when I speak from the heart, I'm very transparent, and that's what works for me. And sometimes it doesn't work for me because sometimes maybe I'm too transparent or maybe I'm not polished enough, but I don't know how to be any different. I am just telling the truth as I see it, giving the information that I have. I believe 100% in what we do, and that's really what I do. There's no more secret to it than just being real. And yeah,
be real and bring your heart
yes.
into the room.
Right.
Oh.
If I was selling, nails at a hardware store, I don't believe in that. I mean, not that they're not important. I wouldn't have that. So I do have to really believe passionately in what I'm doing. But this, I believe passionately in what I'm doing.
Well, and I love that, and I've often talked about to my team and to a lot of my colleagues who have this love and hate relationship with marketing and sales. And I tell them, well, selling is a love language.
Yes.
If you believe in something, you're offering to create a service or a product that's going to make their life better. It'll create something beautiful, just like you have done for our state. And I've heard you say that if you could give any advice for anyone who wants to learn marketing, is like first learn sales, first and foremost.
100%. It's so funny because you have read up on me. So when I have people come to me and ask me, yeah, I really want to get into marketing, what should I do? And especially in sports, because sports is a very difficult field to break into. Everyone wants to work in sports. And I always tell them, get into sales first. And that they are not happy when I say that, because a lot of people are very afraid of sales. But that's where I started. I started in sales. And sales enabled me then to learn the business, to also be comfortable in talking to people, because what is sales but talking to people? You're just talking about something that you believe in, and that then kind of opened the doors for me to get into marketing. When we have a sales position open, we might get 50 resumes. When we have a marketing position open, it's 850. Get into sales first. And I will hire someone who has a sales background long before I will someone who has a public relations background or another background, because if you can get through sales, if you can cold call, if you can find that grit inside yourself, because sales is hard, you can do anything.
You can do anything.
Yes.
So again, going back to Florian always talks about the teammates. Like, I don't hire based on resume.
Right.
Sit down with me. Let's see what's your attitude about life. What about,
100%.
how do you get up after something happens? And that's just like a recurring theme. And I feel like it's almost going to become more important coming up with AI.
Absolutely.
Where we're going to rely on that humanity of us, but also determination and grit. And it's an interesting thing you bring that up. One of the things that I'm noticing with the younger generations that can be a little bit frustrating for me when I'm hiring is often the inability to persevere when it gets hard.
Yes.
What do you think? Have you noticed similar trends? And what do you think that is all about?
I just had this conversation with a friend of mine, and I'm hesitating here because I don't want to sound like, when I was your age.
We're not going to do that.
But I think about my own kids, who are amazing kids, and neither of whom are in the business world. They're both in creative fields. But they both, especially my daughter, who's an actor, the hardest field, and so much rejection. But she has that perseverance. She does have that. I mean, she gets knocked down every day because she isn't cast in something, every day. And yet she picks herself up and she just keeps on going. And I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's something that is inside of you, that you have that ability to, after something detrimental happens, that you're able to pick yourself up and go on. I do think that for younger people, and I've got great young people who work for us, but there have been people who, right at 5 o'clock, they are out the door. And listen, I believe in life-work balance, but especially in my world, in events, there are times when you can't leave at 5 o'clock because we have to do everything we can. And there's this sense of kind of like me before the greater good, which, again, I'm hesitant here because not all young people have that. Of
course not.
But, I know in our field, there has to be kind of that willingness to go that extra mile no matter what, to put in the work. We have one young kid who works for us, young man, and he is incredible. And I wish I could clone him because he is, always willing to do anything. I always tell my kids, ask what else you can do, even if it's not in your job description. How else can you help? Or try to anticipate what else needs to be done that perhaps isn't in my arena of what I typically do. Those are the kind of things that will help you move forward. And sometimes I have seen that maybe that isn't as prominent. What do you think?
Well, pretty much the same observation as you have seen, and I think that I know a lot of people who are very often it's just maybe a point of being raised and how they were raised. And the life circumstances. Also, we are a lot softer. I can see it in the schools and with the teachers today who are incredibly soft on my children. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, 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 no. He does not need any accommodations for that. He just has to work harder.
Right.
So
Right.
I think it's a common sense thing for me, but I'm a really big believer in grit. I've had a very tough life, lived through war. Majority of the things of my younger life was hard, but I look at the people who build something great, and they, again, going back to that, they persevere. They just like your daughter. They're able to meet rejection at its face value and able to get up and keep going. And that really does something for us, because when you want to build anything great, when I've learned in conversations with people in that chair, is that you have to keep going because the path is not going to be easy. Think about the Super Bowl. Think about all of the big events that you have done. It was not easy,
Right.
but you had the perseverance and the determination.
And I think some people are motivated by challenge, and other people see challenge and they just kind of fall apart. Something difficult or tragic happens, and understandably, some people they kind of crumble, and then other people, for whatever reason, almost see it as a motivator. And I think I have probably seen it as a motivator. And that's not to say my probably my biggest issue, and my family will agree, is I am a worrier. I've gotten so much better, but I do tend to, I try to solve things, oftentimes up here. And I think that, but that's also been a strength, because I kind of feel like there's a challenge and I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. Whether it's my children's life paths, which, they don't want that, or, whether it's work, whether it's, okay, we've got to get from here to here. How are we going to do that? And so it's almost like one of my character defects, so to speak, also can be one of my strengths, because I'm a little bit of a dog with a bone and I'm going to figure it out.
Do you think that if there's someone who is really struggling today with not being able to persevere in spite of rejection or loss, do you think that that's a muscle that they could strengthen today, and how?
Absolutely. It's interesting, because in my, there was one particular job where I worked for a very difficult man. And I lost a lot of my self-worth and self-esteem. I started to doubt myself. I started to, he was not nice. We've all had bosses like that. And I really was coming home from work every day, kind of sick to my stomach. Sunday nights, I was miserable. And I finally was like, what am I doing? And I did have to kind of reach inside. I mean, it is a little bit of an internal game where you're like, okay, either I'm going to believe all this stuff, or I'm going to really go deep, and I know who I am, and I know what I'm good at, and I know that I am worthy, and kind of question everything that you feel is coming at you. And I did that. I did therapy. And it was really extremely helpful for me to understand that I haven't changed. I'm still this person who is capable. But you know, you mentioned the imposter theory when we first sat down, and I completely was getting into that at that job. And I was like, I'm fake. It's all going to come crumbling down. They're all going to realize I don't know what I'm doing. But through talking to someone about that, it made a huge difference. And I have never let go of those lessons that I have learned.
There. That's interesting. Situations like that one, or so many different situations, can put us in a position where we start to doubt ourselves.
Yes.
And so many I believe we came here to be of service. And I
Yes.
believe that we came here to figure out who we are and then figure out what our gifts are and then to give them away. And what a blessing it is when we do that. It's like the greatest joy.
Yes.
I wish that for everyone. But there's so many people who have these big ideas and they have the dreams and they have a hard time following through on them. I'm curious, you have worked with incredible visionaries. Do you think that there is a trait or certain set of values that separate those that continue to build on something great and those who don't?
So two things to say about that. One is I do have you mentioned this, and I am very spiritual, and I do believe that, you know, my whole kind of more will be revealed is based in a place of I do believe that if I look for answers, the answers appear, whether that's someone telling me something or having a conversation or even just in meditation. I went to bed the other night very stressed about an issue. And I woke up and I had the solution. I mean, even I was like, I woke up like, I know what to do. This is what I need to do. And it was because, you know, I think I kind of let it go. And like in the morning, and I got up and I wrote down what I needed to do. So I do think like looking for those answers, if you have a belief in sort of that the universe is going to provide, you know, whatever that might be. The other thing I will say about people who have a big dream and feel like, oh, you know, I don't know how to get there. Starting Minnesota Sports and Events, we had nothing. And we had to put on the women's Final Four in 2 years. And we didn't have money, we didn't have anything. And that was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. But what I had learned and what I know and what I still believe is I don't need to solve the whole thing. It's, you know, a little bite at a time, the next right thing. And the next right thing is something that I use all the time. I don't have to solve every single thing, but next right thing. Okay, so if I am trying to raise money, I don't need to worry yet that I'm going to be told no or I'm never going to make it. Next right thing might be I need to reach out to one person that I know and say, hey, listen, we're trying to raise money for this. Do you have any ideas? So if you break it down, and it sounds so simple, but a lot of times we become overwhelmed by our problems, challenges, because we're trying to solve the whole thing versus just, okay, what can I do today?
Take the first step.
Yeah.
Well, that was so beautifully put. There was like this bird's eye view, spiritual guidance, and then there's this practical, tangible step, which I loved. And it was, I think I said earlier, all will be relieved, but it's revealed. More will be revealed.
Yes.
So more will be revealed, not
Yes.
all, but
Yep.
more. And
Yep.
that goes in line with the next step will be provided. There's such a peacefulness that comes with this idea. You know, ask and it's given.
Yes.
When you ask for something and then you sit in meditation and you can really let go to trust that you are going to be guided. And I've come to know that if we're able to really relax, the answers always come.
Yes.
I don't know I have no explanations, but they really, really do.
Right.
But I also heard you say that is like just get up and do the next thing. So there's this really bridging the esoteric with something so incredibly practical.
Right. And I am if it was just very kind of, esoteric and
Airy
like it'll
fairy.
all airy fairy, that is perfect, airy fairy, then that wouldn't work for me because I also am a person who needs to know, I need to see, okay, what is the next step? I need some solid steps to take that I can do. And that has really served me well. The answer, and the other thing, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this too, I might think that this is the right answer, and then what will be revealed is something different. And I find myself thinking like, no, that's not what I
You have to
wanted.
be open.
Yes, but I tell my daughter this all the time. Whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen, and it's all going to be okay. It might not look like what you want or what you think it will, but in the end, it will all work out, and it always does. It
It
always
always
does.
does. And we should, I wish all of us would have, all of us would relax a little bit and know that, it really does work out. There's a point in which a peacefulness comes for me in the middle age. There's an incredible peacefulness about tomorrow.
Yes.
It's just going to work out.
Right.
I'm going to show up. And I think that you are reaffirming like one of my big beliefs. Show up as yourself, be authentic, do the best that you can, and just more will be revealed.
Right.
There are women who are so smart and competent and capable, men too, but particularly this is a thing that I'm noticing with women, women executives in particular, who they really have everything it takes. And when it comes to an opportunity to come into the boardroom and ask for money and propose an initiative, ask for a raise, they lack the confidence. You are oozing with it. What do you think someone can do to really improve on that confidence when they walk into a room where it matters?
Yeah, I'll go back to the gentleman that I worked for, because I lost my confidence. I really did. But again, that was not because of anything I had done. It was because I was allowing him to impact how I felt about myself. And as soon as I got back to knowing who I really am and knowing what I'm capable of, then and it wasn't overnight, but that confidence slowly came back. And then I was actually able to make the decision to leave that organization. And I loved the organization and I liked my job, but I realized that I couldn't work for someone who was like that. I think and so having that confidence in yourself, I mean, it is, I think, a lifelong journey.
Yes.
I wish I would have understood and maybe had some of the beliefs I have about myself at a much younger age. Life would have been much, much easier.
Yeah, I wish I had this brain in those years,
Exactly, right? Exactly. But, with experience and
Comes
age and
wisdom.
time comes wisdom. Exactly. And I think that I think showing up for yourself and being your own champion, especially for women, I think sometimes and maybe it's women of my generation, my mom was a housewife. I didn't have a working mom who I, saw her going to work every day. And she was lovely and amazing, but there wasn't a role model. And so I think women who are my age maybe had to forge our own way a little bit. And so some of it is just having that confidence in yourself. And I did find role models. And that was another really important thing, is it's kind of like, I want what she has. And so what does she do what lessons can I learn from her that will help me to be more of a leader? And I have brought lessons from almost everyone that I've worked for to my role at Minnesota Sports and Events. And I am not, I love my team so much, but they will tell you I am not a typical leader. I am not I'm warm. I am welcoming. I love them all. I it's a very different environment than a very corporate business, and it wouldn't work everywhere. Obviously, we're a small team, and it's almost like my husband says we're like a political campaign where you're working 24/7 leading up to an event. So it's very intense, but that is how I liked to be led, and so that's how I lead. I give structure, I give guidelines, I give support. When needed, I will give pushback, but always in a kind way that how I would want to be treated.
Yeah. Well, that's why you are such a phenomenal leader.
Thank
You are yourself, and I think that you are able to use all of your gifts, but be so 100% authentic and real. And that disarms people and makes them want to rally around you. And it's a really powerful lesson for everyone who wants to lead. I'm learning that over and over again. We used to think that leaders have to be, egotistical,
Right.
telling everyone, ordering people around. And there's
Some leaders still do think that.
some do, and I just don't know how that will work in a world that we live in right now, where people we really want to feel something. And when we feel something or move on something, we're going to work extra, extra hard.
I agree.
Talking about some of those, again, you truly have access to, the who's in Minnesota. Is there anything in those rooms that we should know about for people who have never sat in rooms with so much wealth and power and influence? Is there anything hidden or scary? And I ask this because very often we feel like I don't belong there, or I'm not good enough. Anything that would kind of lift the veil about being in those rooms that would encourage all of us to say, I belong as well.
One of the things that has helped me in that is I've made it okay to make mistakes, because I have made mistakes. And that used to be my biggest fear, is I'm going to make a fool of myself. I am going to make a mistake. And I have made mistakes in situations where immediately after the fact, I've thought, oh my gosh, I can't even believe this. I had to testify at the legislature, and there's a protocol at the legislature in addressing the committee chair a certain way and addressing people, and I was getting all messed up. And it's you don't mess that up. And afterwards, I was mortified. And, I just thought, I'm sure I'm not the first person who has made a mistake, and no one died. Everyone's fine. And, no one is going to remember that. And so being okay with the fact that I might not be perfect alleviates so much of the stress in those rooms. The other thing I will say is people are just, my experiences, they're generally nice, and when I'm out asking for something, they're not wanting to belittle me or immediately tell me no or shame me. They're listening, and if they can't, they will tell me, but I don't have such a reason to be scared anymore. And I think that's I think the difference, because in the end, we're all people. That's what I'm sure you know this too. It's like, you might meet someone who is a powerful CEO. He's got this reputation, or she has this reputation. And then afterwards you sit down and you chat, and it's like, they have problems with their 18-year-old as well, and you have common ground. One of the people that just recently that I just enjoyed talking to so much was Senator Klobuchar. And, she's on, national television, CNN, MSNBC, everywhere, all the time. She's sat in the most powerful rooms of powerful world leaders. And, we had this really great conversation just about Minnesota sports. And she is a hoot. And I like her so much. And that's, I walked away and thinking, like, she's awesome. She's great. She's just, she's
Just
one
like
of us.
every-
She's a Vikings fan. She's,
So relax,
yes,
be
yes,
yourself, going back to
exactly.
and just and I've heard you say this a few times. Just go for it. Make an ask.
Yeah,
You
because
haven't-
all they can say is no, and that's okay. That's okay.
At least you've tried.
Right, right.
Well, you have done, gosh, when you think about the events that you have done, I'm thinking about just the Super Bowl. I'm like the coldest Super Bowl I think ever recorded.
Yes.
And you made it so much fun
was
and so exciting. And then all of the other big events and more special Olympics coming, all when you think about all of these different really phenomenal big events, you're reshaping the way we see you and we talk about you. You're reshaping the landscape of the entire state. Do you hear that? Do you realize that you have done that single-handedly?
No, I don't. And not like I'm being modest, but and again, I truly do believe this. It really is the people who are around me. So we just got done with World Juniors, and so we had 10 hockey teams from all over the world. We are the state of hockey, and we and it was challenging because typically what happens when the United States hosts the World Juniors is, especially in a border state, is a lot of Canadians come. And so we were counting on that in terms of ticket revenue. And because of the political climate, that there was a boycott of travel to the United States. And so we had, we thought we would have 55% of tickets sold in Mariucci Arena where Team Canada was playing, and we sold 12%. So it was a huge, huge difference in kind of what we projected and what actually happened. Having said that, because of the amazing group of people I have, Debbie Estes, who is my events person, she had a fan festival outside in Rice Park, inside in River Center, and we had all of these, bumper cars on ice. We had a New Year's Eve celebration. We had ice bars. We had just so many things, and tens of thousands of people came down. Even if they didn't have a ticket to the game, all of this was free and open to the public, and people had so much fun. We had a marketplace inside River Center where you could buy all sorts of vendors were set up, local vendors who are, artisans and crafts. And it was such an incredible time. Even though we didn't sell the tickets that we had hoped to, it was just this celebration. And that's what I love about, and I could never do that on my own. I've got the best of the best who are putting that on. The same thing happened during Gymnastics Trials. You had gymnastics happening at Target Center, but we had a whole fan festival called Promenade du Nord as a call out to the Paris Olympics. And we had vendors and activities. We had 1,000 gymnasts dance to open Promenade du Nord. I mean, we did the most amazing, wonderful things, and we attracted over 200,000 people to downtown Minneapolis during that period of time because of the creativity of the team and what they put together. And so, when you say that I'm having an impact, like the team that I have around me, they come up with these incredible, out of the world ideas, and they make them happen, and that's what's so unbelievable.
Sounds like you're having a lot of fun.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
And it seems like you're leading an incredibly purposeful life.
Yeah, I am. I feel very fortunate.
Wendy, what does rise to more mean to you?
I mean, I feel like that could be sort of the tagline for every phase of my life, because in every phase there have been these opportunities, and I could have at any given time allowed the challenges to kind of cause me to, like, I can't do this. But I think it's such a great term because we can all get through those difficult times, challenges, obstacles, have gratitude, and be more and rise to more and be the best that we can be.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And you have done it in such a way that inspires me. I am so in awe of you. And it's an interesting thing. Very often I talk about energetics before I even met you, even just the photography, and seeing your smile and communicating with you. I feel so honored that you came to share with us. I could sit here and talk for 3 hours
Oh,
to
I
you, and
think
it
we
would.
should just like go out for dinner.
We
We absolutely
we
need to.
totally
Yeah,
should.
we need
But
to.
I know that you have to put that foot up, and you want to heal that.
We'll do it.
You
We'll do
really
it.
are a trooper. I think that this was a lesson in perseverance. It was a lesson in how to be a class act, authentic human, and also how to make an impact that ripples not just in your community but nationwide. And you have done all of that. And I thank you, and everyone listening thanks you for rising up, for looking at all of the challenges in the face and still showing up. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.